What's going on, guys? It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video, and this time I'm going to be going over each of the first 10 rounds in fantasy drafts this season and telling you who I think the best draft pick to make in each of those rounds are. Obviously, not all of these guys are necessarily going to be available to you, depending on which draft slot you're given, but these are guys that I find myself really targeting in each of these rounds, and guys that I think are really just tremendous values. So, I recently put out videos on the riskiest and the safest draft picks in every round, and those were super well received, so I thought I'd do a similar series doing the best and worst draft picks, just sort of based off of how I've been perceiving them in my own drafts. So, been a lot of fun making these videos. We're at the end of July right now, so we're really coming up on football season. Training camp's in full swing. We're getting news every day, and draft season will be here before you know it. So, want to be here to help you guys dominate your drafts, dominate your friends this season, and really just get as many championships as we can. So, yeah, with that, let's get into round one. Starting us off in round one, I think the best draft pick in round one is TYREEK Hill. Not to say that he should be the consensus 101, I'm by no means suggesting that, but TYREEK Hill is obviously an elite wide receiver, and to me, he's in that same tier as the other top three wide receivers in Justin Jefferson, Ja'Marr Chase, and Cooper Kupp. In fact, I would actually have him ranked ahead of Cooper Kupp, just given the injury concerns I have with Kupp and Stafford. So, to me, I think that you could easily make a case that there's not really a significant drop-off between Justin Jefferson at the 101 or TYREEK Hill at the 107. So I find that I get the most value in my drafts where I get the 107 pick, and it allows me to get TYREEK Hill there. Normally in the top 6 picks, you'll see those top 3 wide receivers go. You'll see Eckler and CMC, and then along with Travis Kelce, and then that's where you see TYREEK Hill slot in at pick 7. So I think that after those first 3 wide receivers, I have no problem taking TYREEK Hill. In fact, if you want to take TYREEK Hill as high as 3rd overall, that's not a problem for me, and given that he's going around at pick 107, he's just an absolutely splendid pick right now. In round two, we've got my fantasy darling this season, Nick Chubb. I just think that Nick Chubb has a legitimate shot to finish the season as the running back 1 overall in fantasy. I recently put out a bold predictions video where that was one of my 5 bold predictions for this season, where I do have Nick Chubb finishing as the running back 1 this season. He's currently being drafted as the running back 6 overall at pick 15. In most years in fantasy, the running back 6 would probably be a top 10 pick in the first round. You normally see 6 or 7 running backs and a couple receivers go in that round 1. And on top of that, I think that Nick Chubb is pretty significantly underranked, being at the RB6 right now. I've got him ranked as my RB3. I think that there's a case to be made for him to be even higher, and like I said, I legitimately think he's got a shot to finish as the running back 1 this season. Even in PPR formats, I think he's going to catch more passes and just really dominate on the ground. Probably have 2,000 total yards. He's got a legitimate shot at 2,000 or 20 touchdowns this season, and just insane upside in that offense. It's the best offense he's been a part of in his entire career, or at least it should be if Deshaun Watson's anywhere near what he used to be in Houston. He's got the least running back competition of his career. That not only did they lose Kareem Hunt this offseason, they also lost Dearness Johnson, so he's really only competing with Jerome Ford for touches. I think Jerome Ford's a fine dart throw late in drafts as like a handcuff, but he's really no more than that. He'll probably get 5, 6, maybe 7 touches a week. It's not going to necessitate that Nick Chubb comes off the field on 3rd downs like he used to with Kareem Hunt in the fold, and that means that Nick Chubb's probably going to break a career high in receptions this season. I've currently got him projected for 35 receptions. I could even see him creeping up over that 40 reception number. And if that happens, he's just going to have an absolutely monster finish. He's also got a really easy strength schedule in the second half of the season. He's got a really tough first 5 weeks in which he plays the Bengals, Steelers, Titans, Ravens, and 49ers, all who start or finished really well last season in terms of fantasy points allowed to the running back position. But in the second half of the season, he's got the second easiest strength of schedule in terms of fantasy points allowed to the running back position last season. And giving Nick Chubb that easy of a schedule over the second half of the season is just going to make him an absolute league winner. If you don't draft Nick Chubb, I think you'll have an opportunity to trade for him maybe around like week 5. They'll be going into their bye in week 5, and then they've got that matchup with the 49ers. So people could be a little bit down on him. I could see him being like a low-end running back 1 for the first 5 weeks, and then really just kicking it into high gear once the second half of the season kicks off. In round 3, I think the best draft pick that you can make is Chris Olave. I've talked a lot this offseason about how much I truly expect Chris Olave to break out this season. He was another one of those players I talked about in my 5 bold predictions video. Go check that video out if you haven't already. But I think Olave is just an absolutely elite wide receiver. He really showed that last season. He's an elite deep threat in this league, and he's received a huge upgrade at the quarterback position. He finished as a top 25 fantasy wide receiver last season with Andy Dalton as a rookie. And he's currently being drafted as a wide receiver at 14, the 32nd player going off the board. And I currently have Chris Olave ranked as a top 8 wide receiver as my wide receiver 8. I think he's got a legitimate shot to finish top 5. Hell, I think he even has a case to be made that if everything breaks right, he does have wide receiver 1 overall potential. And that's the beauty of it, is if you're drafting him in round 3, he's probably your wide receiver 2, assuming you went running back, wide receiver, or wide receiver, running back. And if Olave is your wide receiver 2, you're probably pretty set. He's going to be pretty much locking you down for having the best wide receiver room in your league. I think he's going to be a league-winning asset in the fantasy at the wide receiver position, and just getting him at the end of the third round at pick 32 is just insane value to me. I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to make a lot of people really happy this season. Next up in round 4, I think the best draft pick that you can make in round 4 this season is going to be Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's currently being drafted at the end of round 4 as the quarterback 7 at pick 46. I've currently got him ranked as my quarterback 4 in my rankings, so just at the quarterback position, I'm significantly ahead of consensus, and I think he's got a legitimate shot to put up some just absolutely historic numbers this season. I'm not going to project him to break the all-time passing yardage record or the passing touchdowns record, but he's got a legitimate shot for 5,000 plus yards and 50 plus touchdowns this season. He's got an elite offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore. He's got an aggressive and fast-paced offense. This is going to be a team that's going to go for it on fourth down because they know their defense is really bad. They've got to put up probably 30 points every single week to be competitive, and that's exactly what we want for fantasy. We want a team that's going to be super aggressive, run the entire thing through their offense, and they've got the weapons to do it. And obviously Herbert's plenty talented. On top of that, they've got the second easiest strength of schedule in terms of fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position last season, meaning that Justin Herbert's going to have plenty of opportunity to just carve up opposing defenses. Like I said, they're going to find themselves in plenty of shootouts as well. And if we look at the starting schedule for this team, it's just super juicy. They're going to open the season at Miami. That game should be a shootout. They're going to play Tennessee, who couldn't defend the pass last season. Then they're going to go to Minnesota and Las Vegas, two more teams that just could not defend the pass last season and have good enough offenses to make those shootouts. So 3 of those 4 first games should be pretty high scoring affairs. They should be absolute shootouts. They're going to get you really just off to a nice start for your fantasy season. The only minor concern with Justin Herbert is his end of the season schedule. He places Las Vegas in week 15. That's great, no problem there. But then in week 16 and 17, he places Buffalo and Denver, who both ranked bottom 5 in terms of fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position last season. Both these defenses I expect to be good again this season. But I think that those are 2 teams that should have better offenses as well. I wouldn't be super worried about those games. I think they could still be shootouts as well. And obviously, if this offense is as good as I think it's going to be, I don't think it will really matter what defense they're going against. So I think that Justin Herbert's probably the best value at the quarterback position this season. Getting him in round 4 is probably locking in a top 5 quarterback for you. And like I said, I think he's got legitimate quarterback 1 overall upside. So draft Justin Herbert in the 4th round if you don't have a quarterback yet. Up next in round 5, I think the best draft pick you can make here is going to be Jerry Jeudy. He's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 24 overall at pick 58, and he's got a legitimate case to be made for him being a top 10 wide receiver this season. He was the wide receiver 3 over the final 5 weeks of last season, which showed just how truly elite he can be. He was drafted super high just 4 years ago to be an elite performer, and that's at the same time, he's still really young. He's 24 years old. He's as old as Terry McLaurin was as a rookie. He's a very young player. It's very likely to believe that he could have a later breakout in terms of his NFL career because of how young he was coming into the league. And the Broncos offense should improve massively this season. They've added Sean Payton as their head coach. They're going to get their weapons back in terms of Javonte Williams. They added Samaje Perine. Tim Patrick's coming back. Their offensive line is much better. This is going to be a team that's going to score a lot more points than they did last season. And I just don't really see a world where Jerry Jeudy finishes below that wide receiver 24 mark. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 for a good offense, and he's got the talent to be a truly elite performer. He's being drafted as either your low-end wide receiver 2 or your wide receiver 3, and given that, if he's your wide receiver 3, you're going to have an absolutely dominant wide receiver core, and I'd just be stoked to have that. So drafting Jerry Jeudy in round 5 is an absolute steal, and I think you should do that. Up next in round 6, I've got James Conner as the best draft pick you could make here. This one was pretty easy for me. James Conner to me is just Najee Harris with a much cheaper price tag. I don't really differentiate the two very much in terms of what I'm expecting their production to be. In fact, I think that Conner actually has less competition for targets or for touches in the offense behind him, with Jalen Warren really factoring in for Najee. And I think they're both relatively talented, although I actually think James Conner is a more talented running back than Najee Harris. And they're both a part of bad offenses, but James Conner is going to be getting at least 20 touches a game this season. They're going to be significantly involving him in the passing game. They don't have any competition for touches behind him. He's going to have to be a focal point of the offense, and he's going to be getting all the goal line work as well. He's been really good at that over the course of his career. It's been a staple of this Cardinals offense when they get into the red zone, is getting it to James Conner, and I think that's going to continue this season. I think he's got a legitimate shot to finish as a low-end RB1 this season. Could be a fringe top 10 kind of guy if things break right for him, and if he's healthy, he's going to be an RB2 at worst. He's just a guy that's going to volume his way to being good enough. If Kyler Murray comes back and is an elite performer again this season, you could see this offense actually be above average, and if that's the case, James Conner could legitimately be another even a top 5 guy. He was running back 6 from like week 12 on last season, and I mean, he's got that upside. He's shown many seasons so far in his career where he's been a top 12 guy, and you're getting him in round 6 right now. You're getting him to be your running back 2 or 3 probably, and if that's the case, I think he's an absolute stud there. Round 7, this one was super easy for me. It's a guy I talked about a ton this offseason. I think the best draft pick you can make is going to be David Montgomery. The guy's just going to have double-digit touchdowns this season. I've talked a lot about how he's replacing Jamal Williams, who had 17 rushing touchdowns for this team last season, and I think he's a better player than Jamal Williams. He's more explosive. He could easily have some more longer touchdowns as well. He's going to get the goal line work ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's going to get over 1,000 total yards because he's probably going to get 250 touches. He'll be a more involved pass catcher than Jamal Williams was as well. Williams only caught 12 passes last season. I'd expect Montgomery to be closer to the 30 reception mark, and he's currently being drafted at pick 81 as the running back 30. I've got him ranked in my projections as the RB 16. He's got legitimate top 5 upside as well. If something were to happen to Gibbs, he'd be a all-around 3-down back in what should be a really high-end offense, an offense that really involves their running backs. And even without anything happening to Gibbs, I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for both of these running backs to be on the field. I think David Montgomery's going to get all the goal line work. He'll be involved enough as a pass catcher. He's going to be a low-end wide running back 1 or a high-end running back 2 this season, and he's just a steal. I'm drafting him everywhere, and you really should too. Next up in round 8, I've got Jordan Addison as the best draft pick you can make here. He's just a really talented young wide receiver, drafted in the first round by the Minnesota Vikings, replacing Adam Thielen, who was a receiver who ran the second most routes in the entire NFL last season, just behind Justin Jefferson. So we know this is a Vikings team that's going to want to throw the ball a ton. They're clearly going to do that. They lost Dalvin Cook in the offseason. They've really doubled down on their desire to pass the ball, and they've got good enough weapons to do it. I'm currently projecting him for over 85 receptions and over 1,000 yards as a rookie. That stats him out to be a wide receiver 25, despite an ADP of wide receiver 41, and I'd expect him to progress and get better and better as the season goes on. We normally see rookies start a little bit slow. You could even see KJ Osborne be the number 2 in this offense for the first few weeks, well, number 3 after TJ Hawkinson, and then watch Jordan Addison sort of climb those ranks as the season goes on. But over the second half of the season, I would not be shocked at all if Jordan Addison's a top 20, maybe even a top 15 wide receiver, especially if he just really is as talented as he was drafted to be. And on top of that, if touchdowns break right for him, he could easily have a 10-touchdown season. We could see a world where Kirk Cousins throws 40 this year. I'm only projecting him for 4 receiving touchdowns, so there's plenty of room for him to grow for my projections, and I'm certainly expecting big things from him even with those. So I think Jordan Addison's a guy that you're going to draft and be able to use on any given week, and he's got legitimate league-winning upside if he ends up really panning out as a top 20 guy. In round 9, I think the best draft pick you can make is going to be Antonio Gibson. He's finally going to be given the pass-catching role in this offense. It's really a role that he should have had for years, but they had J.D. McKissick there sort of snagging all those touches up from him. But he's a guy who came out of college as a receiver. He's obviously panned out really well as a running back. He's been a top 10 running back in his career twice already from a fantasy standpoint, and he just still doesn't get the credit he deserves. He was still like a low-end running back 2 last season. He's just a much better player than Brian Robinson, especially as a pass catcher. I'd expect this team to run the ball quite a bit, so I think there will be room for Gibson to get some carries on top of what they're going to be giving to Brian Robinson. I would still project Robinson to be the leading carrier for this team, but you're going to see Gibson get about 15 high-value touches a week. He'll be really efficient with those touches. He's going to get a lot of receptions as well, and even though he won't get the goal line work, I think that he's just going to be a really safe pick. I'd expect him to be like a low-end running back 2, high-end wide receiver 3, or high-end running back 3 this season. And he's currently being drafted as the running back 37, a guy that basically he's being drafted to not start for any teams. And I think that you can draft him and play him on any given week. I think he's got even more upside if they involve him as much as they should. He's a much better player than Brian Robinson. If he just talent wins out, if Eric Bieniemy decides it's time to use him, then he could be a top 10 running back again. He's done it twice in his career so far. He's a really talented player. He's a really good pass catcher, and he's going to be really efficient with the touches he's given. So there's a wide range of outcomes for him here, but I think that he's going to be a really safe bet to outperform his ADP, and he's going to be a guy that at worst you can use on any given week, and if things break right for him, he could be a legitimate league winner. And last up here, I think the best draft pick you can make in round 10 is going to be Quentin Johnston. I just think he's a really talented player. He and Mike Williams are going to be the guys that line up outside for this Chargers offense with Keenan Allen working into the slot, and the Chargers have been really vocal this offseason about wanting to throw the ball down the field more, really stretch the defense, and Quentin Johnston can do exactly that. He's a very talented deep threat. He can do a lot with the ball in his hands after the catch as well. And if anything were to happen to Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, which it won't be shocking at all, we see these two guys miss time all the time, I would expect there to be several games this season where at least one of them is out. And if that's the case, Quentin Johnston's going to be a top 20 play in each of those weeks. He's currently being drafted as an ADP of wide receiver 47. That's just way too cheap. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to have high-end upside on any given week. A perfect sort of guy you can throw in your flex, sort of think like a Gabe Davis mold. But with more upside than that, if things break right or if there's an injury to a guy ahead of him. So he's going to be a high-end flex guy, a guy that you can play any given week with a lot of upside. And then obviously there's weekly upside as well if something happens to Keenan or Mike Williams. He's just way too cheap his ADP right now, and I'm drafting him pretty much everywhere. So that'll do it for this video where I go over the best draft picks every single round. Tell me what you think about these guys. If there's any guys that you disagree with, if there are other guys that you feel like I left off the list, let me know. I'm happy to go over it in the comments. It's a lot of fun to sort of go back and forth, come to a consensus on these things. Up next, I'll be doing a video where I go over the worst draft picks in every single round, so stay tuned for that. If you want to make sure you get a notification when that video comes out, please do subscribe to the channel. You can click the bell so you get a notification when the video goes out. If you did like the video, which I really hope you did if you made it this far, please just do me a favor and click that like button. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm, really helps me know that I'm doing a good job, and really just helps grow the channel. We're something around like 475 subscribers right now, so let's really try and hit that goal of 500 by the start of the season. I think we're going to make it, but it'll be super exciting. Really wanted to hit that goal for a while now, and I think we can do it. So it's been super exciting. Football's coming around the corner, and just getting really excited about it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteeleFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.